Okay, we're back into history and so we're back. What happened? This is the Oilers era. 85-86 is especially an Oilers era, or so it would appear. The Norris division is led by Chicago at 39, 33, and 8, and again, the Norris is the weakest of the divisions. Minnesota 38, 33, and 9, and St. Louis 37, 34, and 9, and then a miraculous Toronto Maple Leafs at 25, 48, and 7. It's miraculous because teams that finish with better records don't make the playoffs, and you wait and see what they did in the playoffs. The Detroit Red Wings missed the playoffs because they only won 17 games that year. It was a rough year for Detroit. The Red Wings, this is before Yzerman really saves them. And it's a slow descent from the 70s into the 80s. And then during the 80s, it's a disaster. And that's just sort of how Minnesota works. Now, the Smythe division, the Oilers are 56, 17, and 7. And this is the last year that the Edmonton Oilers hit 400 goals. And I think it's the last year anybody hits 400 goals. In 1989, Calgary hits 397. But I think this was the last time a team scored 400 goals. The Flames, as mentioned, 40, 31, and 9 are second in the division, followed by Winnipeg, who are 26, 47, and 7. So the Smythe division is only better than the Norris division because it's got Edmonton in it. Vancouver, 23, 44, and 13. And if you want to look at the worst team to ever make the playoffs, that's probably the one. Is that Vancouver Canuck team who only made the playoffs because LA finished at 23, 49, and 8. So 54 points for the LA Kings and 59 for the aforementioned Vancouver Canucks. It was a long year. Not going to lie. And as a fan of the team, it kind of sucks because this sets them up against the Oilers, and no Canuck fan on the planet thought, oh, good, we get Edmonton in the first round. This'll end up going well. The Adams division is won by the Quebec Nordiques with a record of 43, 31, and 6, followed by Montreal at 40, 33, and 7, Boston 37, 31, and 12. Hartford Whalers finally have a good season, end up above 500 with a 40, 36, and 4 record, which pushes Buffalo out of the playoffs with a 500 record of 37, 37, and 6. So Buffalo finishes roughly 12th overall and misses the playoffs. It would be chaos online if that happened now. The Patrick division, the Philadelphia Flyers win it at 53, 23, and 4, followed by the Capitals at 50, 23, and 7. New York Islanders up next at 39, 29, and 12, followed by the Rangers, who actually finished below 500 at 36, 38, and 6. Then the Pittsburgh Penguins at 34, 38, and 8. And then the New Jersey Devils, still trying to become relevant at 28, 49, and 3. But the time's coming. And it didn't look like it was for a long time for New Jersey. Like, the expectation was that at some point the New Jersey Devils would struggle enough at the gates that they'd end up moving, and the franchise would go to its fourth city. December 11th, 1985, the Edmonton Oilers beat Chicago 12-9 in the highest scoring game of the modern era. So remember, Edmonton beat the Minnesota North Stars 12-8, set a record. They broke their own record at 12-9. There were 12 goals in this game in the second period. So they had their sliders definitely at the wrong end of the scale for that one. That's a game that you watch that on a video game and you go, that's not right. January 28th, 1986, Denny Potvin scores his 271st goal, which makes him the highest scoring defenseman in history as he passes Bobby Orr. And, of course, we can look at that and go, well, if Bobby Orr had been healthy and played his whole career, who knows how many goals he would end up with, probably about 400. But either way, Potvin is legitimately the highest scoring defenseman ever. And April 12th, 1986, Mike Bossy becomes the highest scoring goal scorer in NHL history in the playoffs with his 83rd goal. He passes Rocket Richard. And that record had stood for a while. Now again, Rocket Richard, when he played in the playoffs, there were 2 rounds. Bossy's had 4 often. So again, it's when we look at these records, it's easy to take a look at a record and go, well, yeah, they got that record, but No, just they got a record. January 11th, 1986, Marcel Dion is the first player in NHL history to score 20 goals each season in his first 15 years in the league. March 26, 1986, Neil Broughton is the first U.S.-born player to score 100 points in a season. So that's significant to see American players starting to really make their mark in the NHL in a big way. The Hart Trophy goes to Gretzky. The Art Ross Trophy goes to Gretzky. There's a theme here. The Norris again goes to Coffey. The Calder goes to Gary Suter. The Selke goes to Troy Murray. Now, what's interesting is Troy Murray of the Chicago Blackhawks also had a career year. So we talk about Couturier and Kopitar and players who get the Selke, and how, oddly enough, the player gets best defensive forward during a year where they also have an excellent offensive season. Murray has 45 goals, 54 assists, 99 points that year. So that's pretty insane. The Vezina Trophy goes to John Van Beesbroek of the Rangers. The Jennings goes to Bob Froese and Al Jensen of the... Darren Jensen of the Philadelphia Flyers. The Adams goes to Glenn Sather of the Edmonton Oilers, so Coach of the Year. The Lady Byng goes to Mike Bossy of the New York Islanders. The Masterton Trophy goes to Charlie Simmer. The Lester Pearson Award for MVP for Best Player is awarded by the NHLPA goes to Mario Lemieux. The Conn Smythe goes to a goaltender named Patrick Waugh. We may hear about him again during this series. And the Patrick for growing the game in the States goes to John McInnes and Jack Riley. The number one pick in the draft, and he's been in the news lately for the wrong reasons, is Joe Murphy. 779 games played, 223 goals, 295 assists, 528 points. Plays for Detroit, Edmonton, Chicago, St. Louis, San Jose, Boston, and Washington. Of course, famously, he's part of the kid line in Edmonton when they win a Stanley Cup. And that's in 1990, so that's coming up. Murphy's a guy that will be seen widely as a flop as a number one pick, but he did go on to have a solid career as a support guy. And I wish him all of the best. So, there you go. First and second team All-Stars from that season. Gretzky of the Oilers is your first team center, because of course he is. Mike Bossy's first team right winger. Michel Goulet, first team left winger. Coffey and Howe of the Oilers and the Flyers are your first team defense. And the first team goaltender is John Van Beesbroek of the Rangers. Van Beesbroek came in and did really, really well early on. Second team All-Stars, Mario Lemieux at center. Jari Kurri on right wing. Mats Naslund of the Montreal Canadiens on left wing. Larry Robinson and Ray Bourque on the blue line, and Bob Froese in net for the Philadelphia Flyers, who had an excellent season despite the passing of Pelle Lindbergh during the summer. So this is an insanely good record considering they had lost Pelle Lindbergh the previous summer. The playoffs, Hartford sweeps Quebec. So Quebec wins the division and gets rewarded by getting swept by the Whalers. Montreal plays Boston. What do I always say? Montreal versus Boston is a bad matchup for Boston. And Montreal sweeps them. With this new kid goaltender, Patrick Waugh, in net. He won't amount to anything. I'm telling you. The New York Rangers beat the Flyers in 5. The Washington Capitals sweep the Islanders. So the Capitals with rare revenge in the playoffs against a foe in the New York Islanders. Don't worry, though, Islanders fans. You'll get your revenge in tomorrow's video. The Toronto Maple Leafs sweep Chicago. The St. Louis Blues beat Minnesota in 5. The Edmonton Oilers sweep Vancouver because Vancouver had 59 points and Edmonton had 119. The Calgary Flames sweep the Winnipeg Jets. Now, the division finals, the Montreal Canadiens beat Hartford in 7. The New York Rangers beat Washington in 6 because the Rangers, their jinx and their curse is there, but Washington being Washington, they won't break through until the last video in this series. The St. Louis Blues beat Toronto in 7, so after Toronto has this incredible sweep over Chicago, which I still remember because it was just amazing, because this was a 57-point effort by Toronto that, but they did have more wins than Vancouver, so I'm still giving them benefit of the doubt as to whether they were a better team than Vancouver. But Chicago, there was no way they should have beat Chicago, and then they did. This is, one of those Wendell Clark kind of stories. But then it gets stopped in the second round by the St. Louis Blues. Calgary, the Flames, win Game 7. This is the infamous Steve Smith goal. So Steve Smith's behind his own net. He looks to headman it. It doesn't go where he wants it to go. It bounces off of Grant Fuhr into his own net, and the Flames win that game 3-2. That own goal was early on enough in the third period that the Oilers were still expected to come back and win it. And then the Flames shut it down. So the Flames are fortunate, and then they're smart. They shut things down, and they get her done when they gotta. Now, in the conference finals, Montreal makes quick work of the Rangers. They beat them in 5. St. Louis puts up quite the fight against Calgary. And it's a 7-game series, and St. Louis kind of shows that maybe the Norris isn't that bad. Remember, the Norris division winner in these playoffs hasn't been able to put up any kind of fight against Edmonton. So the fact that St. Louis forces them to 7, that's something. And there would be a series between Detroit and Edmonton, not far down the road from here in the playoffs, where it's not a 7-game series, and it looks like the Oilers kind of walked over them, but at the same time, it showed you how good the Wings were going to get and how this Yzerman kid was going to be. Now, in the finals, Calgary wins 5-2 in Game 1. And I remember having this debate back in 1986 with friends of mine. 2 Canadian teams in the final. Would you rather see Montreal win their 23rd Stanley Cup or the Flames win their first? Well, I wanted to see the Flames win their first because Montreal had already won a bunch. Calgary loses 3-2 in overtime at home, and then it switches to Montreal. Montreal wins 5-3. Patrick Roy wins 1-0 in Game 4. And the legend really starts because Game 5, they win in Calgary 4-3. And a young Patrick Roy is the hero for the Montreal Canadiens. Your goals leader in the playoffs is Joey Mullen with 12. Assist leaders, Al McInnes with 15. Your points leaders are Doug Gilmour and Bernie Federko of the Blues. They actually lead playoff scoring with 21 points each. So when Gretzky and the boys don't get out of the second round, all of a sudden your points leaders look more, human after the 47 points Gretzky had in yesterday's video. Your wins leaders, Patrick Roy with 15, and then Mike Vernon with 12. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. A Montreal Canadiens team, which only has 87 points and doesn't sit anywhere near the top of the league, and just everybody else is better. And yet, this new Patrick Roy kid comes in, and he takes an ordinary, regular team and turns them into a champion. So there you go. The 1985-86 season is now in the books. We'll do 86-87 tomorrow when the Oilers, they know how to write a revenge story, and they do it well. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.